The famous fights in history. David versus Goliath, Ali versus Fraser. But who could forget Clegg versus Farage? The then Deputy Prime Minister and the leader of UKIP went head-to-head over Britain's membership of the EU in a TV debate during the campaign for the European elections last year. They must have missed each other, because last night they staged a rematch at one of the world's most famous debating societies, the Oxford Union. Adam was there too, and just to let you know, the dress code was formal.
Here they queue for 5 hours in the cold to get into a political debate. In the 1930s, the Oxford Union became world famous when students here voted not to fight in a war for king and country. Tonight they're grappling with another generational issue. Is Britain better in the EU or not? As usual, the audience is full of politicians in training.
So I want to be a Prime Minister, and if not a Prime Minister, definitely an advisor to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh.
I addressed the General Assembly like 12 times in my life.
Of the United Nations?
Yes.
It's a high-powered audience.
Yeah, it is.
Here come the grown-ups, the former President of the European Commission, José Manuel Barroso, and Nick Clegg, who's speaking in favour. Opposing is the Tory MP Bill Cash and UKIP leader Nigel Farage. It appeared the Eurocrat strategy is to love-bomb the UK.
The single market, or internal market as sometimes we call it, in fact, to a large extent was pushed by Britain, namely by Margaret Thatcher and by Lord Cockfield. You had such a great European Commission president as Roy Jenkins. Enlargement, the fact that today the Czech Republic and all Central East European countries are members of the European Union, that was very much a project of Margaret Thatcher.
Things got tetchy when Bill Cash raised the Paris terror attacks.
The important point about the question of the European Union is this.
Information.
Yes.
Noting that the fact that over the past 20 years, 90% of terrorist acts committed in European lands were committed by domestically born Europeans, non-immigrant citizens.
No one is denying the fact that that is the case. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the Schengen arrangements and the border issue has created the circumstances in which these people came in.
Nick Clegg lost an election, but has gained a sense of humour.
When I worked in the European Union, it took 15 years for the European Union to decide the definition of chocolate. Anything that takes a decade and a half to decide chocolate is no sinister superstate. I don't want my little children to grow up in a United Kingdom which is broken apart, and the remains of which are drifting friendlessly in the mid-Atlantic. That is not the proud future I want for my country, for my children. It's not the proud future I want for my country. It's not the proud future, I would argue, we want for our nation as a whole.
Yes, Nick Clegg being applauded by a room of students. Nigel Farage, on the other hand, went for the after-dinner speech approach.
I want you please to think of Britain and the EU being like an old married couple. They fell in love and got married in their late teens. 40 years they've been together. In the early days it was pretty good, but it's been getting increasingly rotten over the last 25 years. Of course, a lot of people said, no, 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 you must stay with him. Oh, I know he's a terrible bully. I know he makes all the rules and the laws in the house. I know he forbids you from making your own friends.
Then the vote, done in the same way as they do it in Parliament. And here, the ayes had it. The Oxford Union voting that Britain and Europe are better together.
Adam Fleming reporting there. We've been joined by the UKIP MP Douglas Carswell. Hi. So is this what it's going to be like then? Well, debates like this?
I hope the result will be a little bit more even-handed than it was yesterday at the Oxford Union.
But what about the debate itself? Is that going to really excite the voters, do you think?
I think it is. I think when people realise that actually we've been part of this club for 40 years, it's the world's only declining trade bloc, it costs us £350 million a day. That's enough to build us a new hospital a week, rather. I think people will realise, do you know what? We could change things. We could open ourselves up to the world. We could become an international player.
Do you accept, though, that's sort of rehashing arguments that we have heard before? And maybe there are no new arguments to be made. But if we're looking at 18%, I think the most recent poll said, of undecided, is that really what's going to suddenly sway them?
Well, I think the extraordinary thing is how close the two camps are. I'd be interested to hear Alan's view on this, but about a third of people have made up their mind that they're in favour of staying, about a third have made up their mind that they want to go the other way. But I think we've got everything to play for, and it's going to be the undecided voters in the centre ground who are going to decide this. And that's why I think pragmatic, sensible, economically based arguments are what's needed from our side to win this.
More than half of the public, though, according to the most recent poll, that was the opinion poll for The Independent, now want to leave the European Union. That's the first time in that monthly survey that they've opted for Brexit.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. And in a sense, I'm pleased about that, because I think there were a lot of people on my side of the debate that thought this would just be a walk in the park. It won't be. Douglas is right. There's a lot of people whose mind is made up. There's an awful lot of people who are going to focus on this over the coming months. I believe Britain's stronger in Europe, safer in Europe, better off in Europe. That debate will have to be had. And I hope we can ignite the same kind of excitement that we had in Scotland. Incidentally, I think if Britain leaves the European Union, Scotland leaves Britain. But leaving that aside, in Scotland, on a yes-no issue, where every vote counts, it's not like parliamentary elections, including Northern Ireland, where Labour doesn't organise, where we have 1,000 members and their votes will be important. I hope we can generate that kind of enthusiasm.
Right, you've talked about the economics being central. What about immigration? Because that poll was done in the light of the Paris attacks and the terrorist incidents that we have seen recently. Do you think that's a reflection of public anxiety?
I think it would be really unfortunate if anyone tried to use scare tactics, Project Fear, to...
Do you think Nigel Farage has done that?
Well, I think it's really important that we make certain we don't say things that appeal to people's worst instincts. The way to win this referendum is to show people that actually we can be a better country, we can be more international. Yes, we can control our borders, but we're not proposing to close our borders. And we at the moment, we're part of a club that's lost control. It's lost control of migration. It's lost control of its monetary policy. If we take back control, that is the safe, sensible thing to do. And if we do that, we can be an international country, outward-looking, open to the world, but in control of our own destiny. And I think that's the sort of tone we need to strike.
Right, I'm going to have to finish.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.